Hey everyone, welcome to an NFL video. This one we're going over my favorite plays for the Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings, the Eagles versus the Packers. This is a much more exciting game than last week's Tennessee Titans versus Jacksonville Jaguars matchup. We got a lot more fantasy relevant players. We got DAVANTE Adams, Aaron Rodgers, Zach Ertz, so I am looking forward to this game. I'm sure you guys are too. And anyway, before we continue, if you could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out, and I really appreciate it. If we could get over 2K subs this weekend, that would be insane. And I do appreciate all the support on this channel. It really helps me out. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at ChrisPinell16, and I think that's enough self-promotion. I think we can get into the breakdown. So let's start it off with DAVANTE Adams. He's the most expensive guy on the slate, as expected. And he's not had the best start to the season. Not had the start we expected, I should say. 7.6 points week 1, 20 points week 2 was pretty good, but he still didn't get into the end zone. He is actually yet to get into the end zone, which is very unlike DAVANTE Adams compared to the last couple seasons. And then last week he had 9.6 points. This is all pretty gross for DAVANTE Adams, especially for you guys who drafted him in the first round. But they are winning games, and I mean they're 3-0, and even though they are 3-0, Rodgers has voiced his displeasure with how this offense is running. Still, Adams is the number one wide receiver for an Aaron Rodgers-led offense. He has a 23% target share on this offense, and he gets a fantastic matchup versus the Eagles, and more to move the ball on the Eagles is through the air. So I do think this could be a game that DAVANTE Adams does break out versus the secondary, who's allowing over 50 DraftKings points per game to the position. So I definitely like DAVANTE Adams. I know he's expensive, and I know it's not sneaky or anything, but if you can fit him in the captain spot, I think that's going to be the way to go on this slate. I know he's not been having the best season, but maybe some game log watchers watch that and they don't think he's worth the price, but honestly I think this could be his big breakout game versus the Eagles. So definitely like DAVANTE Adams. He is a core play for me. And then next guy we have Aaron Rodgers, his quarterback, and I like him for all the reasons above. Like I said about DAVANTE Adams, the Eagles are 5th in points allowed to running backs, but they are 24th in points versus the quarterback positions. So for obvious reasons, I prefer the Packers pass attack, which I know has not been great this season. But I'm getting the sense Rodgers, while he is 3-0, is not pleased with the team yet, specifically the offense, as we know he wants to put up the numbers each week in addition to winning. Problem is his defense is much more improved, which means they don't have to chuck the ball around all game to stay in it like previous seasons. But given the matchup, I want to be heavier on the passing attack rather than I am on Aaron Jones, and I really don't have too much interest in Aaron Jones, and I'll talk about him when we get there. The next guy is going to be Carson Wentz at 10,000, and this is an awful matchup for Wentz as the Packers are only allowing 9.4 points per game to quarterbacks this season. 9.4, that's pretty rough. And that's actually second best in the entire league, only behind the New England Patriots, who have yet to give up a defensive touchdown, or an offensive touchdown against their defense so far. So also they have a new budding star in Alexander in the secondary. Packers have been susceptible on the ground, though, surrendering the 3rd most points to running backs per game this season at 34 points, which is quite a bit. Phillip Lindsay had a great game versus them, Dalvin Cook, and then week 1 was, the Bears. So, only problem is the running back group for the Eagles is a committee, so it's kind of gross to play. And here's the thing, though, Wentz has a ton of weapons to throw to, and ERTZ, Goddard, Jeffery, he's back in the mix, and also AGHOLOR, and DJX will miss this game, so unfortunately he will not have him, which is a downgrade, but still. The wide receiver group he has and tight end group always puts him in play, as just because it's such a good offensive system overall. But if I'm picking between Wentz or Rodgers, I will side with Rodgers at home at Lambeau Field, where he's always played better. And next guy is Zach Ertz, who is another core play for me. I love him on this slate. He's 9,200. So Jeffery is back, but he's going to be dialed in, as I'm not fully confident he's going to be 100% yet. And 100% out there, I should say, and Ertz is Wentz's safety blanket, so look for a ton of passes to be funneled towards Ertz with how good Green Bay's secondary has been. They've been above average versus tight ends this season, but they haven't played a tight end as good as Ertz yet, so I'll say Ertz is one of my favorite plays of the slate, and I know he's a little bit expensive at 9,200, but I do think he's well worth the price. Aaron Jones at 9K, not a big fan of him this week. I believe in the talent, but it's a tough matchup for him, as I mentioned earlier. It's always tough sledding running on the Eagles' defense. 15 points allowed to running backs, and at 9K is a little too expensive for my blood, and I can't see him fitting in too many of my lineup builds, especially since he's going to have to split the workload with Jamal Williams, unfortunately. So I'm not too big on Aaron Jones. And then we have ALSHON Jeffery, 8,200. Another guy I'm not too interested in. I'm pretty much going to be fading Jeffery coming off the injury, and now he gets to face Alexander, who's been an absolute menace this season. We saw he shut down Emmanuel Sanders when he was on him last week. And just doesn't make sense for me to want to target Jeffery when there's better, cheaper guys that are in softer matchups. So not too big of a fan of ALSHON Jeffery this week. Deshaun Jackson's not going to be playing. Nelson Aguilar comes in at 7,800, which does seem a little expensive. Probably just got that price boost from last week's performance of 24 points. So like I said, he was great last week with Jeffrey and Djax gone, but Jeffrey is back, so that is a downgrade for him, obviously. But still, there's no Deshaun Jackson, and Jeffrey is coming off an injury, so he should still be involved in this offense, and he should see a softer matchup compared to Jeffrey. So I do think he is in play, but I don't love it, as only my real big interest in this receiving group for the Eagles is ERTZ. But if we want to take a shot at Aguilar, he should be a little bit lower owned than the rest of these guys. I don't hate it, because I mean the guy does have talent. He has a case of butterfingers, but you know he's not a terrible wide receiver, so I don't mind him. And if that guy comes to the game that he put on Twitter, you know, it's always extra added motivation. Not like he's upset about it or anything, but, you know, I mean, that probably made no sense for DFS purposes, but I just throwing it out there. Then we have MVS coming in at 7,600. So he did score off of one of RODGERS' trademark draw the defense offsides touchdowns where he just throws it up because it's a free play. Did score on it, but he still does offer upside as a wide receiver 2 in this offense. I do love the matchup versus the Eagles secondary. The Eagles will try their best to slow down Adams. I mean, they can try all they want, but I really don't see it happening to a degree where Adams doesn't have a good game. But this does mean softer coverage for MVS, and he does have the potential to get loose and get a big play from RODGERS, which is something we love on showdown slates. Just think like Taylor Gabriel last Monday night. And also, fun fact, he has the same amount of targets as DAVANTE Adams this season, which, you know, may seem a little surprising. So, do you think MVS is in play in probably one of my more favorite plays on the slate, really? So I do like MVS. Then Miles Sanders at 6,200. So the matchup is great versus the Packers, who have been getting shredded by RBs so far this season. And we know Sanders is going to see about 10 to 15 touches in this game. So at 6,200, I really don't hate it. He is involved through the air as well with 10 targets through 3 weeks. But it's going to be hard for him to score touchdowns, though, with Jordan Howard on the goal line stealing, you know, just vulturing touchdowns. So I do think he's in play. 6,200 isn't bad, but chances are he's probably not going to get into the end zone. He's going to have an efficient day on the ground and hopefully get a couple catches that he can take pretty long, like last week. Had 4 targets, 2 receptions for 73 yards, which, you know, it's pretty solid. He had 13 points. And next guy, these guys obviously aren't in play. We have Jamal Williams at 5K, though. And unfortunately, Jamal Williams is still a thing, and he actually out-touched Aaron Jones last week. He's 4,000 cheaper than Jones. If by some chance you do want to play a Green Bay running back, which I really don't want to, Williams should see a near even workload as Jones, and he is cheaper, so I do like that. He's 4K cheaper, actually. So, but this is an incredibly tough matchup, and he's not as talented as Aaron Jones, so I'm not in love with him, but he is in play just because of how cheap he is and the workload he should see. Packers defense, not really too interested in any of the defenses on this slate, because I mean, it's just I really don't see it as being too big of a defensive game. But the Packers defense has been pretty solid this season, but I do like some of the Philly weapons, so not too interested in any of the defenses. Jordan Howard's coming in at 4,600. And like I said, this is a committee, and I do hate playing committees, but if you want a running back versus Green Bay, and if Howard gets his 8 to 10 touches and his goal line opportunities, he could pay off at a lower ownership. I can't imagine too many people are going to be running out to play Jordan Howard. So you might get a low-owned touchdown, and if he gets multiple goal line carries, he might get 2 touchdowns. So, you know, I don't hate it at lower ownership. This is not someone that I'm too excited about. And then the next guy is going to be Jimmy Graham at 4,400. It's really just bleh. Everything about this, it's kind of gross. The matchup is and Jimmy Graham is gross. Eagles are middle of the road versus tight ends this season, and he hasn't had a single catch since week 1. So really, why waste your time here? I'm really not too interested in playing any Jimmy Graham. I get that it's a showdown slate, but you can't play everybody unless you're maxing out 150, multi-entry tournaments. But if you're just playing single entries or 3-entry maxes, I really don't see myself putting any money on Jimmy Graham having a good game. I mean, he had 12 points week 1, but after that, he had, thank goodness that bird's gone. It kept chirping. Trust me, it was bothering me as much as it was probably bothering you guys. But yeah, I just really don't have any reason I want to play Jimmy Graham. 12 points week 1, then week 2, 0, week 3, 0. Aaron Rodgers never really utilizes the tight end position anyway. Jimmy Graham's washed up. Really no interest here at 4,400. GERONIMO ALLISON, he is 4,200. So he's not a complete full-time player, but he does see the field, so he's worth a couple shots paired with Aaron Rodgers as they face the Eagles secondary, which I've said earlier, they just struggle against the pass. And in showdown slates, it always seems to be the guy you're going to leave off your lineup, so that means GERONIMO ALLISON's going to pull the Taylor Gabriel and score 3 touchdowns. Not really, but I do think GERONIMO ALLISON is worth a dart throw. Mason Crosby and Jake Elliott, I mean, they're kickers. They are what they are. If they get a couple of field goals, they'll be decent values. If not, you're not going to be too happy with it. Eagles defense, no interest at all. I like the Packers offense quite a bit versus the Eagles secondary, so I don't want to play any of the Eagles, especially playing on the road in Lambeau. It's never a positive thing. Darren Sproles comes in at 2,800 going against this Green Bay run defense, which I said that's where they struggle. I mean, they've been great versus the pass this season, but versus the run, they suck. But the thing is, Sproles only sees about 30% of the snaps, and he's more of a receiving back anyway, so you're just really hoping he catches a few balls and, picks up some decent yardage on it. But really, he has not been that great this season. Week 1, he did have 11 points. Week 2, 2 points. Had nothing on the ground, had a couple targets, but that's about it. Last week versus Detroit, 1 target, no catches, 2 attempts on the ground, 4 yards, only 0.4 points. I really can't trust Darren Sproles in this matchup. I shouldn't say matchup, but in this game in general. We got Mack Hollins at 2,400. He's somewhat interesting. He could be a decent value play. He was the wide receiver 3 on this team last week with the injuries, but he will be moved to the wide receiver 4 role, which still has some value in this offense. He's going to be on the field at some points, not like the entire game, but he was productive with his opportunities the past 2 weeks. He saw 15 targets, and he wasn't too bad. He scored 10 points week 2, 10 points week 3. I don't see him getting 8 or 7 targets again, but if he gets about 4 or 5 at 2,400 and he's productive with them, I don't hate it at 2,400, and he allows you to fit in some of the big dogs on this slate. So don't actually hate Mack Hollins. Whiteside, no interest there. He's going to be in a reserve role. Dallas Goedert, he dropped a touchdown last week, only saw 9 snaps. He's not really involved in this offense too much, so not too interested in Dallas Goedert. Maybe he gets a cheap touchdown and he pays off at 1K, but I really want to play Zach Ertz, and it really wouldn't make too much sense for me to want to play Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, as I really don't see them both having good games. Then after Goddard, it gets ugly quick. None of these guys really have any interest at all, really at all. So probably going to pass on that. I mean, I'm sure Tanyan will have a random touchdown. So, not really, but it's going to be someone random. Something will happen good. You got to get lucky on that because it's a showdown slate. Anything can happen. But that was just my opinion on pretty much every single player. If I had to pick a core, I like DAVANTE Adams in the captain spot. And then I like Zach Ertz. I would definitely start with those two. And then if you can fit in Aaron Rodgers, I would really recommend trying to fit in Aaron Rodgers. I know that only leaves you with 4,500. Maybe you throw Mack Hollins in. Hope he gets a couple catches at 2,400. I like getting MVS in as well. I know this only leaves you with 2,950, so you are going to have to find some value. Maybe you want to go a different route. Maybe you want to throw in Scantling in the captain spot, and that's going to open up a lot more salary than what it's 16,500. That gives you 6,250. That's doable. You can fit in someone like Miles Sanders if you're interested in him, or you want to take that shot at Jordan Howard. Hope he gets a couple goal line touchdowns. Really, I mean, there's a couple ways you can go here. I think Scantling, Zach Ertz, and DAVANTE Adams are really good captain options. I don't really like to use quarterbacks in the captain spot. It tends to be the wide receiver 1 or the RB1 that tends to be in the winning lineup. So that's my opinion on there. I think you have to play Aaron Rodgers. He's probably going to be the highest owned guy in the slate outside of DAVANTE Adams. So do you think you need to get Aaron Rodgers in there? Then I'd try to find a way to fit in Ertz and DAVANTE Adams. It may be tough to fit Adams in the captain spot, so if you want to go with Scantling, hope he catches a couple long plays and gets to the end zone, then I think you're going to be pretty happy with that. Or if you want to play Ertz in the captain spot, I don't have a problem with that either. Or if you want to get funky and just put someone random in the captain spot and just load up your flexes, that's another option too. But I prefer a wide receiver 1 or an RB1. Anyway, guys, that's going to be it for this video. If it was helpful for you, please leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps me out. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys in the next video, which I'm not sure exactly what it's going to be yet. Probably the chalk plays of the week. I think so. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And I'll see you.